Every day, right at noon, my dog would stare at the kitchen door, like it was the gateway to something terrifying. Then, without fail, he wouldn't step inside, no matter what I tried. This strange behavior started subtly, but grew more unsettling with each passing day. What was it that scared him so much? And why did it only happen after noon for years? My dog Max had been the calm heart of our home. He roamed freely through every room, chasing stray sunbeams in the living room, curling up in front of the fireplace, and most importantly, hanging out in the kitchen where he knew he'd get treats. The kitchen was a place of comfort for him, a place where the smells of food and warmth filled the air. Until one day, everything changed. It started subtly. One afternoon, right around noon, Max froze at the kitchen threshold. His ears perked up, body stiffened, and his tail stopped wagging. I called him inside like I always did, but he just stood there, eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. I laughed it off, thinking maybe he was tired or distracted. But the next day, the exact same thing happened. Noon came, and Max refused to step past that doorway. I began to notice little things. Faint sounds like soft scratching or whispers echoing in the empty kitchen. The air around the doorway felt colder than the rest of the house, almost like a chill creeping in from nowhere. Objects on the counter seemed to shift slightly, as if nudged by an invisible hand. Max's behavior grew more intense. He would growl low and barely move, his eyes darting nervously to the dark corners of the kitchen. I tried everything to coax him in. I offered treats, toys, even sat down and waited patiently, but he wouldn't cross the threshold. It was like an invisible barrier stood between him and the kitchen, and only after noon did it appear. This strange ritual repeated day after day, turning our once warm kitchen into a place of dread and silence. Neighbors and friends joked about it, blaming my imagination or Max's stubbornness. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, something beyond the ordinary. I could feel it too, a quiet, heavy presence lurking in the kitchen, something neither of us wanted to confront. It was as if the kitchen held a secret that refused to stay buried. And with every passing noon, Max's fear became my own. The unexplained change in him was no coincidence. It was a warning I couldn't ignore after days of watching Max's refusal to enter the kitchen after noon. I decided to face the mystery myself. It wasn't just about my dog anymore. The atmosphere around that kitchen felt suffocating, like a heavy fog pressing down on my chest whenever I got close after midday. I tried to ignore it first, chalking it up to imagination or stress, but the silence in that room was anything but peaceful. Every afternoon, as the clock struck 12, the house seemed to shift. The light changed, casting strange shadows that danced across the walls, and the air turned cold, far colder than it should have been for early spring. I stood at the kitchen doorway, trying to pinpoint what Max sensed, but there was nothing visible. No person, no animal, no draft strong enough to explain the sudden chill. Yet I could feel eyes on me, watching from the darkness. The kitchen was eerily quiet. No humming fridge or ticking clock. It felt as though time slowed down in that space. One afternoon, I mustered the courage to step inside. As soon as I crossed the threshold, a shiver ran down my spine and the hairs on my arms stood up. The silence became oppressive, like a thick blanket smothering every sound. I called out softly, but my voice seemed swallowed whole by the room. Then, faint whispers tickled my ears, almost inaudible, but enough to make my skin crawl. They weren't words, just murmurs, the kind you'd hear if you press your ear against a wall where something restless lingered. My heart pounded. Was it in my head, or was something really there? Max sat just outside the door, growling low, his eyes locked on a dark corner near the pantry. The longer I stayed, the heavier the air felt, as if an unseen force was watching me, waiting. There was no face, no shape to the presence. Only an overwhelming feeling of dread. It was like a shadow that swallowed light, a void where no warmth could survive. I realized this invisible presence was the reason Max stayed away. He wasn't just scared of something physical. He was sensing something beyond human sight, something faceless and patient, lurking in the kitchen silence after noon. And now. So as I determined to uncover the mystery behind Max's fear and the silent presence in the kitchen, I began digging into the house's history. I learned that the kitchen, or more specifically, the spot near the pantry, had been the scene of a tragedy decades ago. A woman who once lived here was said to have vanished without a trace one hot summer afternoon, right around noon. Neighbors whisper about strange noises and cold drafts in the house, but no one ever found out what really happened. The more I researched, the more the pieces fell into place. That faceless presence Max sensed wasn't just a ghost. It was a lingering echo of that woman's final moments, trapped in time and space. She wasn't just watching. She was waiting, stuck between worlds, unable to move on. And somehow, her restless spirit had chosen noon as the moment her presence became strongest. One afternoon, I decided to confront the kitchen myself. Max stayed close, still wary but trusting me enough to follow. As the clock struck 12, the familiar cold swept over us. I stood in the kitchen, calling out softly, asking the presence what it wanted, why it was tied to this place. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a sudden rush of cold wind blew through the room, and I heard a whispered plea, almost human but broken by despair. I felt a flash of sadness and anger. The spirit was trapped, desperate for release, but unable to find peace. That explained the subtle disturbances, the shifting objects, the chilling silence. Max wasn't just avoiding the kitchen to protect himself. He was warning me of a danger deeper than I'd imagined. I realized the only way to help was to face the past head-on, to acknowledge the pain and loss trapped in that kitchen. It wasn't just about fear. It was about healing for both the living and the dead. And with Max by my side, I vowed to uncover the truth and bring peace to the faceless presence that refused to be ignored. From that day forward, the kitchen no longer felt quite so silent or cold. The boundary Max feared began to weaken, and though the spirit remained, it seemed less angry, a quiet reminder of the secrets that hide in the shadows, waiting to be understood sometimes. Fear is not just a barrier, but a message. Paying attention to what others sense, even when it's unseen, can lead us to uncover hidden truths and heal old wounds. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it and bring light to the shadows.